Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can help me increase my fragile self-worth. Just kidding, subscribe! Our first story today comes to us from PlazmaJak. Grad student told me to do things their way. Let's jump right in. So here's the context. Some years ago, I worked at a cruise ship doing souvenir photography. It was my second summer there and we had a new manager that year that was finishing her master's in photography. Standard, not digital. Pay was based on a group split commission. So if the day photographers did terrible, but the night photographers did amazing, the day photographers benefited and vice versa. My first year, the owner stopped by to train us and gave us specific instructions on how we should photograph guests and why we should be doing it, and saw an increase in sales as a result of it. The owner has been doing it for years and ran multiple locations, so I just listened and did what I was told. Fast forward to year 2, we have this new manager who had not been trained yet, but only received basic instructions, and was told to defer to the returning employees for things she didn't understand. For the first couple of weeks, it was fine. Slow start to the season, so sales of course weren't crazy. Come week 5, when night cruise starts, I noticed that myself and my only male coworker are both only being scheduled for mornings. At first I thought, whatever, free at night, no big deal. I figured since the new manager was working with a returning employee, things would be okay for commission on the night cruise days. First week of night cruises goes by, and I notice I made drastically less than last year for the amount of hours I worked. I checked the sales spreadsheet, every employee needed to update this at the end of their shift, and noticed that day sales were the same as night sales. I ran up to the ticket office to check the passenger list for the days they ran night cruises, assuming there just weren't many passengers. Not only were there way more passengers at night than during the day, but I noticed way more waste. Second week, I have a split shift that overlaps with the manager. She pulls me to the side at the beginning of the shift and explains her expectations for photos. She shows me a couple of hers and then shows me one I took. She told me that the way I took photos was unacceptable, and I had to shoot them the way she did. These photos, by the way, get put into 8x6 sheets and small wallet-sized photos. Her photo was, highly technical, let's say. The entire top half of the photo was negative space and showing off the location. Yeah, sure. I kind of got what she was saying because I was in school for photography too. Too bad we're selling pictures of people and not space. I explained to her that myself and my coworkers have been shooting the way the owner himself instructed us to, and she said, "I'm the manager here, not you. I don't know what he told you to do, and that's not what we're doing. Do it the way I tell you to, okay?" The third week, I explained to my coworker that this is what the manager wanted, and he was confused as well. So we do it. We take these photos where the passengers are barely visible in the wallet photos and half of the photos are negative space. Sales plummeted to no surprise from anyone but the manager and owner. I got a phone call from the owner asking if there were fewer passengers or something, and told him that it was normal. He asked why sales were down at night as well, to which I told him I had no idea, because I was never scheduled to work at night anymore. He wasn't sure how to take that, but we left it at that. The next week, the owner called me to inform me that the new manager had agreed to mutually terminate her employment there, and then asked why we were having so much trouble. I told him everything she told us to do, and that scheduling was bad since it left us understaffed for the night cruises. It turns out she was instructed to hire new employees for the season, and she ignored every single applicant because they had no formal photography education. So basically, knowing full well it would hurt sales to not tell the owner that the manager just wasn't good at sales photography, I just waited until she got in trouble for turning up losses because she pulled, "You do what I say, I don't care." Sorry. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called iMark. It says, "I don't understand why you didn't tell the owner the problem when asked." OP replied to this one and said, "Technically, I did. I just waited until it was convenient for me. Am I the butthole? Absolutely. Plus, I guess I omitted an important fact. Earlier that season, when it was slow, I brought up I was being scheduled on charter days, think school field trips, where we obviously weren't going to make money. Manager told me that was for her to worry about and not me. When I did tell the owner, he said she's right, just let her do her job. When she found out I did that, she scheduled me by myself as much as she could get away with. Now, OP also mentioned that they didn't tell on the manager because they didn't want to be seen as a rat from the other college-age people that were working there, which is kind of understandable. You don't want to have that reputation amongst your coworkers. I do have to think though that in this case, the coworkers probably have a problem with that manager as well, especially if they're not making as much money as they used to. OP could have talked to the coworkers and see what their thoughts on the manager was, and then maybe get together as a group and go to somebody above the manager to have them taken down. This next story comes to us from jbdelcanto. You want me to charge you the real price? You got it, Chief. Let's jump right in. Context, which plays quite an important role in this malicious compliance. Until February, a few months ago, I used to work at this really old school gas station. What I mean by old school is that every task and chore in the station had to be done manually, and these three were essentially the most important ones. 1. Put gasoline in people's cars. This had to be done by me because the only way to start the pumps was to activate them with a magnetic chip. Also, as I said, nothing was automatic. So if someone wanted to put, let's say, $40 worth of gas, I had to check the pump constantly as it filled the car to make sure it wouldn't go over the desired amount. For reference, modern gas stations where I live let you pick the amount you want on the pumps, then automatically stop when it has been reached. Unrelated malicious compliance, some people would insist on putting the quantity of the gas they wanted themselves, and I always told them sure, whatever, but make sure to stop at the right amount, otherwise you'll have to pay for what you put in your car even if it's more than you wanted. Spoiler alert, they almost never stopped on time, and would always get upset at me for not stopping it before. My answer would always be, hey, you can either pay and we're all happy because I told you to check what you were doing, or B, you leave without paying, but in exchange, I call the police on you for gas theft. Let's say that 95% of the time, they'd choose option A. 2. Changing the gas prices. As I said previously, the pumps were quite old, probably dating from the 80s, and that meant changing the digits for the price on the pumps one at a time. If the price was $131.9 and I needed it to be at $129.7, I'd have to put it to $131.7 first, then $139.7, and finally $129.7, one pump at a time. I had to do this for 6 pumps. So overall, you could say that these pumps were quite crappy to work with. That was the first part of this task. The second one was changing it on the sign. To do so, I'd have to take this little machine, plug it into the sign, then repeat the same steps I did on the pumps. Note that all of this was done outside, which can be quite a pain in the butt when it's minus 40 Celsius. Yay for Canadian weather. 3. Calculating how much gas was sold between the price changes. As you've probably guessed it by now, this was done manually too. To make this short, this was also super annoying to do, because I had to calculate the amount of liters and money sold with a calculator, but I also had to make sure the cash register balanced while serving a ton of customers. This was done at least 2 times a night, and sometimes it could be as much as 4. So we had to make sure the register balanced from the previous price changes every time, or we could not keep track of how much gas we sold. Now, the story. It happened around 3 years ago on a really busy night while I was in the middle of rush hour. One of my superiors had called to tell me to change the price from $1.309 per liter to $1.259 per liter. Okay, cool, this isn't a problem. I always do this kind of stuff during rush hour. So in between customers, I changed the price on each pump. But since the machine for the sign is still inside the station, I don't have the time to go just yet and leave the sign at $1.309 per liter. Note that the pumps are now $1.259 per liter, so customers are actually paying less than what the sign says. This is one of the few tips our manager gave us and encouraged us to do. If the price was going down, we would always change the pump's price first, then the sign, and if the price was going up, we'd do the opposite. This way, it would look as if we were undercharging the customers, because the sign was always at the higher price than the pumps. The reason we did this was to avoid rush hour becoming even worse than it already was. If the customer saw the price on the sign go down, they would rush to the station even more, and that'd leave me no time to balance the register, which had to be done right away anytime there was a price change. I know this may not be the best practice, but it helped us a lot because we always worked alone. Although we shouldn't have been, my manager's boss was a cheapskate and wouldn't let him hire more employees. So now that the price has been changed, I keep on doing my thing and trying to balance the register as fast as I can, so I can put the right price on the sign. Everything's going fine, and then at some point, I get this one guy. I put the amount he asks for in his car, it was something like $40, and give him his receipt, and that's when he starts complaining and yelling at me. He says that the price on the receipt, $1.259, so actual price, doesn't match the sign. So I proceed to explain to him that I changed the price on the pumps first, and that if he looks at them, he'll see that the price on the receipt matches them. All should be good now, right? Nope. Now he tells me that I'm trying to steal from him, and that I changed the price on the pumps after I gave him the receipt. I tell him that this is not possible, as I am in the middle of a rush, and that the pump's price have to be changed manually one by one. He doesn't want to hear it, and keeps yelling that I'm overcharging him for gas. Cue the malicious compliance. So I tell him, alright sir, you think I'm trying to steal from you? Then come inside and have a look at the security cameras. I'm telling you, there's literally no way I'd have the time to change the price. He still doesn't want to. Now he wants to leave without paying because I'm not charging him the right price, and yells even more than before. Okay, cool, I'll charge you the right amount then. So I go get my calculator and start calculating. The real price being $1.259 per liter. I check how many liters that is by doing 40 divided by 1.259, which amounts to around 31.77 liters. I'm right next to the pump with him, and I tell him, look, even the numbers on the pump match, in hope he'll see that I'm not stealing from him. Like modern pumps, you can see the amount of cash you're paying and the amount of gas that's going in your car while you fill it. Nope, still doesn't want to hear it. Alright then, here it goes. 31.77 liters times 1.309 per liter. Sir, you owe me $41.58, not $40. That's when he gets really mad and gets in his car ready to leave. So I gently tell him, sir, you're going to have to pay or I'm calling the police. The look on his face just changed from angry to defeated in half a second. Dude ended up paying $41.58, told me he'd make a complaint to my manager and that he'd never come back to the gas station because we were thieves. Joke's on him, I knew my manager would side with me and dismiss the complaint. By the way, I worked there for 5 years, and this was the first and only time a client ever complained about the price being lower than shown on the sign. Most of them would just avoid telling me, so I wouldn't charge them the price displayed on the sign. I absolutely love this story because when my wife and I first got together, one of the jobs we did was actually working in a gas station. Let me tell you, when you mess around with those pump prices, the customers are going to get angry, and it doesn't matter whether they're saving money or losing money in the transaction, they're just going to get angry. It's because the general people out there don't really understand math all that well. It's kind of like that story out there about the third pound burger. It flopped because almost everyone went, nah, I'll get a quarter pounder, they're bigger. Or how many people don't understand that 6 hours and 15 minutes isn't 6.15 hours? It's actually 6.25 hours. Just hope that your payroll person understands that last one. So yeah, working in a gas station and having to change the prices can be a pain in the butt, but OP, you know, at least you didn't do what the owner of our gas station did and change the price to 14.9 cents and then leave the store for the day. If my memory serves me correct, I believe a couple of people actually filled up their cars only for a couple of bucks before somebody actually came in and mentioned that the price was wrong. So at least there's still some good people out there. This next story comes to us from buttgers. It's 2019. Please buy the office a digital scanner. Let's jump right in. I'm an orthodontist, have my own practice, but I needed to supplement my income by working for this one corporate orthodontic practice several years ago to help pay off some debt. Dental school and residency have put me in a massive hole. This company was sold to the corporation by an older orthodontist who hadn't invested in this office for years prior to the sale. After they acquired the practice, it was subject to their investors' thumbs. So we really operated on a lean, mostly old technology infrastructure. It was a miracle I convinced them to upgrade their IT infrastructure and patient record software early on. They still went cheap with it, but at least the software was full-featured, HIPAA compliant, faster than the old garbage, and had the things I needed to ensure proper scheduling and record keeping. After working for them for a few years, I asked for a digital intraoral scanner, that wand that scans your mouth to make a digital copy of your teeth and bite on a computer. For those of you not too familiar with dentistry in general, back in the day when we needed to get an impression of your teeth and bite, we used alginate, an algae-based powder with which you add water to make a goopy putty that firms up after about 2 minutes. This office never left those old days, and it made the patient experience terrible. Alginate is messy, gets all over your lips and cheeks, is slimy in your mouth, and feels like it's going down your throat. Cue gag reflexes in many, many patients, especially those on the spectrum. Additionally, it adds a lot of lab work. Appliance turnaround is slower, and it takes away from the available schedule time due to setup and cleanup. Any imperfections in the impression require a retake. Oh yeah, it also needs to have a dental stone poured into it within several hours and is a one-shot deal. Hope it's accurately poured up, because if it breaks or fails, you're SOL and need another alginate impression. My personal practice has had these scanners for a few years by this point, and I keep preaching to the company how positive the feedback from patients and staff efficiencies alone would provide a good ROI with numbers to back it up for the bean counters. Still, they didn't want to purchase a digital scanner. Meanwhile, being a terribly run corporate orthodontic office, we had quite a bit of turnover with assistants. New assistants would usually know how to take a good digital scan, but alginate impressions were so-so. Teaching new assistants how to take digital scans is also relatively easy compared to alginate impressions. So I'm getting tired of this constant training. The longtime assistant is getting tired of the constant training. And I tell them they really need to get a scanner or we're gonna start pissing off a lot of people, myself included. Again, they said no and to drop the issue. If you want a scanner so bad, why don't you buy one yourself? Fine. I take a business loan out to buy a scanner, start up an LLC for a dental lab, and I charge this company a monthly fee to use any digital lab project. Any digital scan was charged a flat fee on top of a monthly digital workflow fee. I didn't really try to gouge them on the fees, still below market rate but still very handsome. I looped my accountant in on my new business, and they set up all the books to ensure I wasn't exposing myself to the IRS. Patients are now oohing and awing at this new gadget and how high-tech we finally are, and I start seeing things trending the way I predicted. Staff are happier, patients are definitely happier, especially the oral sensitive ones, mistakes are down, appliances fit way better with fewer remakes, patients are able to get things done on their schedule as we have more chair time available, and appliances are coming back faster from the labs. And best of all, I'm making more money off this miserly company because rather than buy their own scanner and use it as a tax deduction, they're paying me way more than it would have cost them instead. Sure, they can deduct my lab fee as an expense, but it still costs them more in the long run to do that than bring 2019 technology into the office on their own. Even better, when I left that office, I took that scanner with me since it was legally mine. I guess I might be showing my age here, but I definitely remember having those impressions taken when I was a young child. I had to have a night guard, and that was the way that they molded it to my mouth. Yuck. Although I do remember that kinda neat suction sound when they pulled the thing out. That was probably the only good thing. One good thing to come out of this though is that OP working at this extra practice, this corporate place, they can see how things are not supposed to run and what makes things run poorly. And then they go back to their own practice and make sure they don't do any of that stuff there. Honestly, it should make their place run a lot more efficiently. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.